Hello, welcome to Code with Brylie. We're going to continue working on an app today for gender sentiment surveying analysis. It's tentatively named Gender Sentiment Kiosk. The idea is for a community organization, we want to measure gender diversity in the community who are participating in events and accessing the space, but also get an idea of how people are, what their experience is in various events or just dropping into the space. And see if we can do some more granular analysis to see if there's differences in experiences between genders, or at particular periods of time or for specific events. And so we're building a small app that can be sort of deployed on a kiosk tablet, sort of mounted by the door of the entry and exit of the space. And people can just walk by and press a couple buttons and it'll record an observation. It's anonymous, it's kind of hard to de-anonymize these two fields plus a timestamp. Not impossible, but I think there's enough people entering this space that we could consider this anonymous data. Also, the data, I'm planning at least to store the data on the actual device. So we've got a work in progress here. Adding ISAR Flutter, so this is a data storage library for Flutter. In the meantime, I've been kind of thinking ahead a few moves, what we're going to want to do. We're not going to do a lot of data analysis with this app, but I think there could be a couple of minimum types of charts we might render, like a distribution of sentiment by day and by gender by day. So kind of group by, a couple layers of group by. So I've been chatting here with Gemini. I have a bit of code above helping me walk through the thinking around this aggregation pipeline. It seems feasible. So if I use ISAR, we should be in good condition as long as I'm working on a sorted list of observations, up to 1,000, maybe a couple of thousand observations. It should be relatively performant. I can later look at, persisting those in a database collection, stuff like that. But I don't want to get too ahead of myself. I'm just kind of thinking, trying to anticipate any roadblocks. It's kind of hard to do, or just desired use cases. Again, this is mainly trying to collect survey data. Then we have, Python and other things. So I will definitely have a CSV export feature at the minimum viable type thing, and maybe some analysis stuff. In any case, I think we're in good positioning for the analysis part. I'm going to commit this change though with ISAR. I'm going to actually take a step back and look at the state management. Converting it to a stateless widget and using the provider. I think Flutter recommends flutter.dev. They sort of recommend for state management to start out with provider, as far as I recall. Get started. And let me just make this a bit bigger so we can read it for a moment. Interactivity, I think state management is sort of under that. Can't remember where I read this. Performance optimization. It should be pretty earlier though. in the application development lifecycle. So right now we have just a global app, a single app with internal states, a stateful widget. But we will need a little bit of app state. As you can see, we're tracking the state of these buttons. And we also have a timer in the background that resets the buttons if you haven't like selected them both within a time frame. The idea is that once you make both choices, it'll save it in the database. So if I stop here and I'm thinking for a minute, how was my experience? I have about 10 seconds to kind of read these and reflect. And if somebody just walked by and hit a button, it'll just reset the app to the neutral state. And then of course I can say, oh, okay, well, I've had enough time. That was a good experience. So boom, boom. And then I've got my recording. So that's the idea. We have this little timer that's keeping track of this and resetting us back to the neutral state. So we have some app state. There's no clear-cut rule. We started with a stateful widget, but I think do whatever's less awkward. That makes sense. And simple state management. I think they're just saying if you're doing it, the provider package is easy to understand. It doesn't use much code. We're going to be using the provider package. I know there's several competing choices. Jim and I said, hey, we can check out how you would use block or provider. And in the back of my mind, I was like, I think I remember that provider was mentioned. Not that it's necessarily superior. I think they also were clear that there's just trade-offs. So anyway, that's where we're going to go. We're going to pause this current branch. I'm going to commit these changes. I think we're, let me double check here actually, because I've done some refactorings I want to merge. Yeah. Let me just roll these back. Discard all 7 files. I'm going to go to my repo. Flutter friends, gender sentiment, and we should have just so yeah, sorry I didn't introduce this at the beginning of the stream. Our project source code is here on GitHub. I should have said that at the beginning for people who might be dropping in at any point on the video. I have one pull request in progress. Sort gender options alphabetically. The branch is named add persistence, but I'm just going to fix this real quick. It's a nice touch. Alphabetical is a bit of a neutral way of sorting strings, and I did rename the app. So yeah, we will merge these. Review, merge pull request, and I think it's maybe a quicker thing to switch to provider for the state management and a pull request here. So now that we've merged this branch, I'll just check out the main and we will pull down the changes and my terminal open. Just make sure we've pulled everything in. Add provider. All right, cool. So the app is running. I think we want this to be in the upper right-hand corner. Up top right. Okay, so everything is still working good. This is potentially a breaking change if I'm not careful. So let's go step by step. And I was having some troubles with ChatGPT earlier. It was really getting hung up on both Python and Dart code, if I recall correctly. Mainly Dart code, though. It was just literally freezing at the same character in the generated output in the code blocks. So I think there's something wrong right now with ChatGPT. So let's do pub-get provider. How you do that? Let me double check. So yeah, I am a Flutter noob. I'm not afraid to admit it. Hey, Lennox, thanks. Lennon LC, thanks for the follow. How are you doing today? Welcome to the stream. Are you doing any Flutter app development yourself? Okay, so the simplest way is just to go into the pub spec and add it here, but I don't know what version to add. So it says to use the latest version. So I think if I just open the terminal, we'll go to, whoops, code, new terminal, and I think it's Flutter, add provider. It's going to resolve it. Now this is interesting. It's saying provider greater than 6. That's confusing. Flutter package 58 days ago. So it could be a hallucination. Where's the latest release? Changelog 6.1.2. So Gemini is a bit of a dangerous wild card, and it says you're used with caution. I've used the ChatGPT a lot more on code generation, and yeah, they will hallucinate. Humans hallucinate too. I'm hoping this is going to work. Package Flutter Foundation. This will add the kiosk state. Interesting. Flutter Foundation. I've not heard of that, but now that I'm, again, an expert on Flutter, we're going to put this in our main Dart because I believe that's where we're going to define the state. And then we create a change notifier provider, Flutter material Flutter provider, in our main Dart. So yeah, package Flutter Foundation should come, I guess, before, alphabetically before. I'm kind of adopting some Python conventions. Unused import, okay. We're going to create it. So our form here has, 2 state variables, the gender and sentiment, and then we have a timer. So we're going to just redo this. So it's going to have a couple of variables to hold those, and then setters, set. Yeah, and each time internally is going to restart that timer for 10 seconds. So there we go. That's good. This is good. So all the state is managed. It's encapsulated in this kiosk state. Maybe kiosk state's not the best word for it. I don't know 100% that we'll be running it on a kiosk, but yeah, let's go with it. So now I haven't made any other changes. We just have now a state handler and still not using foundation. Unnecessary because of all these elements are also provided by the import of package Flutter material Dart. Okay, so we will keep that in mind. I'm like, the developer experience in the Flutter ecosystem is really top notch. The amount of help it gives you and notifications and guidance to write clear code and concise. So now we're going to import, it looks like provider. So material Dart and probably imports foundation and builds on that. I'm not sure. Package provider would come. I don't know how you sort imports in Flutter projects. This is just saying unused. All right. So we have the kiosk state class here. Then in our main function, so let's hop down here to main. Before we run app or inside of that, okay, we're going to have a provider. We're going to pop this provider and then run the gender sentiment app. So we're basically replacing the whole main function. All right, so this should just work still because we haven't changed the way this state works. Our app is still a stateful widget. So this is now where I'm going to potentially make the breaking change. We're going to remove this gender app state and we're going to take the build function and essentially, put everything on all these variables, the color vars inside. So refactor our stateful widget, convert our thing into a stateless widget. Extend stateless widget. All right, this is where it's going to get a little bit risky. But one way I can do this is, the model is trying to be a bit efficient. I understand. I respect that. We don't want to waste resources when I already have all the context. So what I'm going to do is leave that one alone for a minute. And I will call this stateless gender center map just to distinguish it from the other one. That's a problem. Should be okay. Since it's stateless, the value of local variable kiosk state isn't used. Try removing the variable. Yeah. So we're going to use the state inside of the. So we have to move our UI widgets. So everything in the body, basically. Let me think here. So we're going to return a material app. UI code, so the children. Let's find that. So we need all these children widgets. Let's grab the whole body. I'll just. Then we're going to have to bring those variables over. We'll have to target these red squiggles to use our provider. This is cool. In a moment, let me just collapse this for a minute. So inside of this build function, we'll use all those variables here. These color variables, at least. We will no longer need these state variables. These were just constant static theme related color variables. So we'll bring those into the build method for the stateless. There may be a more conventional way of doing that, but I wanted to define the colors. You know, you can define them in a theme, for example. Maybe that's more idiomatic, but I just wanted to define these are the button colors essentially for the selected. The gender has just the same shade. These colors were picked by my friend Kat, who's kind of leading this project, and I'm just kind of implementing proof of concept here. Now, to make the squiggles go away, I'll need a little more real estate here. So we already had like a helper function in a way. And the way these helper functions were. I'm guessing this isn't the way to do it. It's a setter and a getter. Nice. So we moved everything to the state manager. It didn't inherently improve readability in the render method, but I think it's going to consolidate all this stuff, including writing to the database, which we're going to do. We'll have like I'm hoping like a reactive method there. So what we'll need to do now is delete these. But first, extraneous modifier. I guess, oh, I see what I did wrong. First, I need to dedent these. No, oops, what did I do? Control Z that. Shift tab, See if that makes those go away. And then I guess since it's stateless, they are implicitly static. Nothing can change. Or they can't be reinitialized. I'm not sure what that means, to be honest. All right, now the next step is to swap out this gender sentiment app for this stateless gender sentiment app and see if things just work. Looks like we did it. Looks like we did it. To be certain, just going to delete everything. App builds. In fact, I will just run the app. I don't know, just to sanity check it. Yeah, pretty good. Change. Quick minute, 20-minute refactor. Buttons are rendering. Boom, boom. Yeah, so this is cool. So now in this, I'll rename this to kiosk state. So we don't need this import. That's good to know. Take that out. And the button's still highlighted again. All right, good. I'll rename this to app state. Rename symbol. So yeah, it's, I don't know if you need to always do this. The Flutter stateful widget is actually, pretty good, but I like sort of seeing how concise this method is, or this state object is. I don't know in change notifier. I don't know how we would, I guess when you select either of these, you can, as we're doing here, notify listeners and invoke other functions. So there will be a function that will take those values from the state and, if both are set, insert them into a collection. I'll have to figure out, but I think we're going to do that in just a moment. So let's go ahead and commit this change, essentially refactoring to use the provider, Flutter provider. Let's see here. Right here, and there we go. So added provider. And then use provider for state management. So what did it really change? It sort of bundled our state in its own class. And these lines didn't fundamentally change, it just a prefix. But you can see now this contiguous range of green is our entire app state. So it makes it easier, I think. And I could even move that state out of this file. Use provider for app state. All right, so we'll publish this branch, create a pull request, and I'll use my magic assistant here. Yeah, we'll just create a pull request, not a draft. Good. Second pull request. Moving along. I'll protect that in a little bit. I've got one pull request open, and essentially, I don't have any continuous integration or anything set up for this project. We're not even really writing a unit test right now. This is just a simple idea. I'm gonna kind of knock this prototype out, and then hopefully they can take it to, or I can take it to the community meeting, and we can discuss this idea. The initiative is to increase the gender diversity in this community space, and in order to know if we're increasing or decreasing, we have to measure. You have to measure things to know that if it's changing, right? So we're like discussing what are the ways we can measure the baseline and then the ongoing gender distribution, as well as like keeping in mind that the goal is not just to measure, but to have an impact on the outcome. And the outcome, we believe that if people are having a good time generally, or a great time, they're more likely to return. It's kind of intuitive, but that's the running hypothesis. And so we believe that the more people of all genders, but particularly underrepresented genders, non-binary genders, are having a good time, then that might increase their participation in the community. They might be saying that they're comfortable and that we're accommodating their needs. That's the idea, and this is being led by the community leaders, and I'm kind of I'm a bit more analytical and code oriented, so I'm able to sort of do some technical stuff here to maybe help us with that. Another way we're kind of working on this initiative is paper surveys. We're surveying people. It's the same idea. This is essentially a survey as well. It's just more passive and, in a way, convenient to people who are passing through the door, literally passing through the door. All right, so that's the context. That's what we're doing. And I'll just merge this pull request without any peer review. Excellent. Okay, I'm going to spend a little bit of time on not state management, but on the data persistence side. So we'll check out main again. We'll pull the changes from main. And it keeps showing me this. Let me pull those changes again because I've been running. Unused import. Oh, widget test. Okay, it's reminding me. That I need to do these tests. I will. I mean, this is important functionality that the button state, manages. And by consolidating the state in a container there, I think it makes it that part easier to test. Oh, cool. Let's try this now. I'm on the main branch. I'm going to commit lint. It's essentially a lint, sentiment main dart. I see what happened there. It got inserted automatically when I renamed it or something. Pushing directly to main is not recommended ever. This is a little side project, kind of a quick weekend prototype. So don't follow my example there. If you're collaborating with other people especially. Yeah, everything into main should have pull request review. That's why GitHub was saying, hey, your main branch isn't protected. What do you want to do about that? Cool, let's create a branch now. Survey persistence. We want to persist the data. All right, we want to start looking at the device. I'm going to go check my ding dong over there and see what's going on. Be right back. All right. Thanks for your patience. So yeah, we got a quick response from Gemini. Now I didn't specify that we're actually storing multiple records. Like, so it's first saying, hey, shared preferences. If I want key value pairs for like, settings. SQLite via SQLite. I knew that was going to come up. Hive, which was later replaced by sort of object box Symbast. So it's not up to date with Hive. Symbast, that's a weird name. But if we go to the Hive docs, and I'm lucky that worked. Hive is now not superseded, but they're recommending starting with ISAR, a Flutter database written by the author of Hive that is superior in every way. This is kind of feeling like JavaScript in that, first Hive, no, now you gotta move to ISAR. It's written in Rust, but it's cool. Really good work. So I'm just a bit sketchy about these types of things, fast-moving dependencies that disrupt your whole project. Hassle-free data management. Easily manage your data in Symbast start package. All right, 31 days ago by that website. Simple embedded application store database. No build state, no SQL. I don't think so. Okay, what are your thoughts on ISAR? Thanks for telling me about yourself, Gemini Advanced, designed for highly complex tasks. It's really it. Just putting data in, querying it in a sorted list by date time. From best I can anticipate, and the query will just be like export CSV, maybe some light aggregation. Here's a comparison of local data persistence solutions for your Flutter use cases, SQLite with SQLite, or more. Actually, yeah. This is the problem though, man. There's just too many of them. It's kind of like, just makes me nervous. This is a prototype, so I don't need to kind of be too worried about it. More has been renamed to Drift. I remember that though. I remember that. Drift. From more to Drift. Yeah, I don't need the rationale. Persistence library for Dart. Drift is the relational persistence layer. I don't need relationships, by the way. Just putting documents in the database. That's key. You have to be aware though. A lot of applications, especially web applications, need relationships, and you go to great lengths in a non-relational context to rebuild those links and guarantees and things. Right, and you can write it in Dart or SQL. And I hope it's type. Everything in Dart is typed, so that's good. Auto updating streams, easily manage transactions, good. Because we will potentially need transactions if I'm going to be inserting analytical or updating analytical documents in parallel with inserting individual observations. That's one thing I've thought of prematurely to anticipate some of the aggregations that we might be running later. But anyway, more on that later. So declarative tables, I like that. Fluent queries, I like that. Definitely relational. Well, that's cool. Safe schemas. Well-chosen SQL schema enables type-safe queries. Boom. We had this one bit us at work. Actually, because we were just running queries as a string, essentially, and selected the wrong field name that didn't exist, and it bit us in production. Yeah. And that was hard to spot. It was hard to spot. The pull request was only a couple hundred lines, and but everything, it was just like missing an underscore suffix. So yeah, type safe queries, that's a good thing. And we can write SQL. That's good because I'm a bit familiar with SQL. I'm not like an expert. Simon Binder, get started. So dependencies, drift, SQLite, Flare, libs, path provider, path, drift dev, build runner. You define your database table, whoops, with some fields. Then and you have schema versioning. So this is cool. It's hinting at migration support, which happens. Yeah, migration's right here. This is cool, because inevitably the schema will change the structure of your data. And not only do you need to change that, you need to migrate the schema, but you also should migrate the data. Otherwise, you're going to have essentially migrations applied at runtime over and over and over in perpetuity. So your schema starts to kind of leach into your application. And it's like having a holographic schema. You have to like have it all throughout your business logic and stuff like that. The schema doesn't really go away in NoSQL. That's the myth. It actually it's like distributed into your application and potentially across service boundaries and things like that. It's kind of crazy. So yeah, that's not really a benefit of NoSQL in my opinion. Losing the schemas. Dark tables. This seems like a cool one. All right, Gemini, thanks for pointing out more. And I do like that it's SQL based. What are the trade-offs? Some setup overhead and requires SQL knowledge. I have enough of that to be clumsy and dangerous. The setup is a bit worrisome. I kind of just want to get this thing shipped. Less powerful than full SQL, of course. My query needs are very simple though, but also the Hive has been sort of superseded by ISAR, comparatively newer than SQLite and Hive, so the community might be slightly smaller. Less suitable, SymBash, ObjectBox. If I'm comfortable, I am comfortable with SQL. SQLite offers the most flexibility, and it's like the de facto kind of lightweight, portable database. SQLite is really good. I'm not really concerned about performance. Our data is going to be on the order of thousands of records, and our queries are going to be returning those. And aggregations, I think, will run in Dart. But if I have SQL, performance needs are not such a high one. And we don't necessarily have relational data here. The way that this is defined, the app is just running. These are sort of these are basically enum values. In fact, I should probably use an enum for those. We can localize them, for example. Oh, that's another point. Basically, what I display on the screen isn't what we're going to want to store in the database. In other words, you have key and value on these buttons. Typically, in like HTML attributes, you have like the label, which is capital F female, and the value that goes in the database will be lowercase f female. And the label on the screen can be localized in various languages. Here, you can have a language chooser. So just putting it out there, I have to kind of be aware of that, and it might be even a good move right now. While we're just thinking about this, I'm leaning towards more or SQLite right now. We'll come back to this. Particularly more sounds nice. I want to look at, but let's look at an enum approach or something. Oh, there it is, GitHub, I saw it. I want to check the more health metrics. Emerged yesterday. It's probably a single developer though. I think this is good. The Flutter ecosystem gives me JavaScript vibes, where you just have a lot of like packages of various degrees of maturity, but usually isolated developer. some drive-by commits and a bunch of churn. But basically that's what we're looking at. And I think if I compared these other options, it would be very similar. SQ Flight, for example. Just give me to the GitHub. Okay, so this is that Tech Arctic again. Oh, where's the link to the GitHub? All right, it's a single developer though, I'm assuming. Yeah, repository GitHub. Same thing, if I look at the insights, there's a build issue there. Pretty sustained development, but one person. So yeah, I think SQL Flight or more, we're gonna be in the same same position, I think. And I'm not gonna spend a lot of time on these, or Drift. Sorry, Drift now. Oh, okay. So let's go with Drift now. But first, back to this thing, this observation here. I'll open up the main Dart and go down here. So this selected gender shouldn't be a string. We should use an enum here, and the selected sentiment should be an enum. But the problem is we'll need to think about separating the value from the label. Sorry, thinking and speaking at the same time. It's like walking and chewing gum for me. I can't really do it. All right. So this will allow storing consistent data in the database while localizing the UI text. And I'm just pasting it in there, give Bard a bunch of context that it probably already had. I don't know how these things work. And I am sort of considering going back to GPT, but it's been having such troubles today. It's been like choking on output. So we define the enums for gender and the sentiment. Update the app state, use a map. All right, so this is good. And you can use the enum as the key. Very cool. And then we grab that and it makes it explicit in the UI. I like that. And then for the comparison, yeah, see, this is, instead of string comparison, this is much nicer. All right, so this is a good improvement. And at that point, I think that'll be almost an hour. I'm probably going to call it a day. We haven't gotten to persistence, but we've gone towards another direction of the persistence library. Drifted through the options for Flutter data persistence. So yeah, let's do that. And I'll put these trailing columns because I like them. And you see this? This is subtle, but it sorts it by male first. It's like a subtle bias. Even if I'm trying to be sort of neutral and sort of alphabetically, there's this kind of patriarchy baked in to the models. The code I pasted displays the female button first, just, alphabetically, let alone trying to, be more balanced and inclusive, which is actually the goal. But, even if you just try to say, hey, I'm trying to be somewhat neutral, which is basically impossible. Everything is political. Everything has bias. That's just, I think, the nature of things. So we have to be aware that everything we're using, every tool, every action and statement has like different interpretations and meanings and political connotations, as well as it's infused with the culture and the zeitgeist. And these models are no different. Interesting. Okay, so now our app state with change notifier is going to be a bit stronger typed, not so generically typed. That's good. And this should still, let me double check. Whoa. So it's going to be broken for a minute. But the squiggles help me. The squiggles, I see them. Then we will use the display value mapping from a localization source eventually. And I think at some point I'm going to need to refactor this whole app into a couple of files, but right now we're not too bad. And see, now we don't have to do raw string comparison. We will say gender female, pass in the correct value, equals gender female, and the text, this is curious. Why it uses the exclamation, I don't know. All right. Arguments of a constant creation must be constant expressions. Okay, so since this is, I'm having trouble reading this, honestly. Let me get the formatting of it a bit better. There we go. And I think it'll fix this for me, or Copilot can maybe help. I'm really leaning on these AI tools. I'm out of my depth a little bit. But I think all I need to do is move the const down in the row a little bit for now. And this helps Flutter kind of manage memory and optimize performance. And I think since this has to fetch it here, it can't be constant. This text can't be constant. But this icon seemingly can. So maybe there's a way I can make this amenable to being constant. Okay. Now we will repeat. Let's see if Copilot's kind of picking up on this change. Gender male, but at least we're getting some help. See, if I'm doing raw strings, I can't get as much help from my tool. It doesn't really know anything inside that string what's going on, right? But when I use this enum approach, it has benefits. It keeps me from making typos. In a way, it says, hey, these are the valid values. So then the other one is, I'm putting a comma here too. Here to split this across. And my colleagues don't always like this trailing comma rule. But working with Flutter a lot and these deeply nested everything really helps me to see more clearly what's going on. Gender display values, gender male. Now, do we need to? And apparently, I'm not sure really what this exclamation does. I need to take the const off that row, and then I can add const here. Just slowly, carefully, making these changes, refactoring. Const, and I could probably type const faster than having the auto help. All right, same idea here. Let's see if I can get some help from, from Copilot. Gender, non-binary. There, Copilot came to the rescue. And here, if I delete, and I hit space, Copilot, not quite, but that's cool. Now it's going to give me something, all right. And the language server helps. Then put a comma here, remove that, remove the const from the row, and we're going to get squiggles because it says, hey, your row can be constant, but then my gender display values should be gender non-binary exclamation const and const. Ooh, still some more squiggles down here. Same process. Oh man, is there a way I can just have it do this for me? Sentiment awful. Sentiment awful. Let me see, what do we have here? Sentiment display values, all right. You know what I think I can do is have dark fix do all those. Afterwards, let's try it real quick. I'll come back to the blue squiggles. There's still a lot of noise here. I think I could factor these all into a single button that just takes the label. It has these callbacks though, but a lot of this is duplicate. Anyway, I'm not sure if it would actually help what I'm doing here. I would still have to change these values, but it would be a little bit less scrolling perhaps, you know, like if they all fit within a single eye span. All right, so we're at the bottom. Let's run Dart fix dry run. I think it's going to be able to fix those consts for me. 6 proposals, 1 file. Prefer const constructors. Yeah, there we go. So this is pretty cool. The tooling in the Dart and Flutter ecosystem is top notch. It's excellent. So now we have everything about basically how it was before. We're about 1 hour in, and I'm probably going to head out for a little bit. I've been cooped up and had a couple of coding sessions today. But yeah, ooh, now it's actually... There's some glitchiness to it. What's going on here? Dang it. I think if I just hit this a bunch of times, my mouse is frozen. The timer starts to freak out. I have a bunch of callbacks happening. And I need to reset the other timer. Interesting. Yeah, I have these futures. There's a little bit of a bug. It's probably not a normal bug that'll manifest very often, but I did notice it. That for people who are confused, yeah, see, they're gonna have timers. The timers are cumulative. Interesting. Huh. Let me commit this. I don't think this is anything I introduced here. It's probably in the original implementation where I had this timer. I just never noticed it because I'm not like literally counting every time. Okay. Oh man, it's 58 minutes. I'm just gonna commit this. I'll open a bug report on that. Simple projects, you know, they just surprisingly complex. Okay, I can use speech input here. I've just noticed a bug in the gender sentiment kiosk. When pressing multiple buttons, the buttons are reset at unexpected time. I believe it's the fact that the timers are futures that are queued up, and multiple futures get queued, the future.delayed duration of 10 seconds. And futures from perhaps previous button presses are then returning or fulfilling their promise and resetting the selections. How can I ensure that there's only one active timer at any given point, and every time the selection changes that the previous timer is disposed of and a new timer is spawned, or at least any previous timers are ignored and only the current timer is used to reset the selections? Hey, that's really helpful. ChatGPT doesn't have that. This just saves me a lot of typing. Very cool that I can do it in the browser. I use that on the phone all the time with ChatGPT. Absolutely, you've pinpointed the issue. Let's fix that bug and ensure your kiosk is a single active timer with correct resets. Wow, this is nice. response too. I'm on the fence about Gemini. Google has a lot of resources and it's been fairly stable. Some hallucinations, those are going to crop up. So we're going to store the timer instead of directly creating a future delayed within your select gender and select sentiment functions. Store a reference to a single timer instance within your app store. Okay. Cancel the existing timer. Before starting a new timer, check if the stored timer is active and cancel it. Makes sense. Yeah, and we're going to do this right in the app state. So everything is there because we're using a stateless widget. All of the state is consolidated and is separated out from the display logic. And then I can just access the state, of course. So we'll set a timer. Now I've had issues with these timers. Well, I tried to make a metronome app. So I'm having a bit of flashbacks here. But nonetheless, I think in our case, it's going to work. The metronome was just too imprecise. Flutter just doesn't seem like a good framework for making really apps that need really precise timing, even within threshold of tens of milliseconds, like human perceptual thresholds. Just didn't work. Start timer. Then I'm going to use that. I'm not really reading this. I'm kind of getting tired. Reset selections, and then, but I'm careful. We're just going to reset the timer. And see, since the app state is isolated now, I didn't have to go through the rest of the application. If I read it, I'll probably answer this question myself. We still have the bool. In start timer, we probably don't need this placeholder as far as so I think we can get rid of that because the timer itself will tell us if it's active. In other words, it's kind of keeping its own state. That's what timers do. You technically remove this timer active variable and instead rely on checking reset timer is null or not to determine if the timer is active. Here's the reasoning. Pros of using is timer active. Slightly less state for your app store becomes simpler. Single source of truth. The presence of or absence of reset timer directly indicates the timer state. I like this single source of truth thing. Cons of removing is timer. Potentially less readable. Checking if reset timer equals null. Oh yeah, true. Might be slightly less intuitive than if kiosk state is timer active. But I don't know if see, I don't think we're actually doing this. If I search for uses of this, 2 of 3. It's just the definition and then overrides. So yeah, we're not really doing anything with that outside of these methods. I would say it's kind of fine to remove it. And then later I can reintroduce it if there's something in our UI that we would need to toggle, for example, a countdown or something like that. But even the countdown, I think, can probably just access the timer directly. All right, so let's remove that. And everything is still working now, but the timer doesn't kind of collide. I can just hit a bunch of buttons and everything keeps going and going and going. The Energizer Bunny. Then we should have a timer here. Maybe. Yeah. I looked away and then it went. 10 seconds is a long time sometimes, but yeah, usually not. Good. Switch to, well, can you help me, Magic Doodle? I don't know what I just did. Reset, refactor timer object and use timer class for reset functionality. Boom. Submit. Bug fixed. Didn't even need a GitHub issue for that. Man, making good progress here. Another branch named survey persistence without survey persistence. Good golly. But I think we did some good work here today. I will merge this. So if you'd like to check out the code, and not on my screen, but you can check on github.com/flutterfriends/gender sentiment. Boom. Right here. Pull request number 3. I'll go ahead and merge it. Confirming that. Deleting branch. Pulling it down. Make sure I got all the latest. Yeah, and in a, oh boy. Do we have more squiggles? The name gender sentiment app. Ooh. I'm going to commit to main. Watch me. Holding my root beer. It is the app. I had named it stateless app during the refactor. And now we're going to fix that. I'll just rename it. Watch this. Rename symbol. This is the way you actually do it. That takes care of everything. Made it a stateless widget. Okay, let's remove some of our GPT, our LLM comments. You know, they're instructive sometimes, but also the code is kind of helping there. Command D was pressed, waiting for a second key chord. What happened with my, somehow my keyboard shortcuts have switched to like Vim mode or something, or Emacs. I don't want that. Keyboard shortcuts got changed on me. I don't do chords, only on the guitar. Yeah, just a small, kind of a lint. Here I go again. Close your eyes. Close your eyes. Don't look. All right. This has been another episode of Code with Brylie. Today, we've worked on the gender sentiment app, and we've got some good refactors. We moved our options, our selections to enums for better typing and avoiding typos and things like that. We've moved our labels into a dictionary. We moved our state into a change notifier using the provider package. So all of our state is here and could potentially be moved out of the, is here. It could be moved out of this, growing Dart file into a tone. In subsequent sessions, we're going to work on persistence. We need to save the data in order to do stuff with it. It's nice having buttons, but they have to actually do something. And I think that, we'll add a persistence package like drift, I'm thinking is going to be the one. And I think it'll be just a matter of adding a method here that will save a given selection or save the choices if they're both set to the database, and then calling that function when you select one or both and or one or the other, and inside again in that function it'll check that both are set, and then it will react and probably call another it'll clear the selection. I think that's what's gonna happen. The buttons will get cleared. Very cool. And then perhaps we'll then need to trigger something for the user saying thank you, so they know that it worked, something happened, and that we appreciate their feedback. Very cool. So that's the general idea, the next steps. And at that point, I believe that'll be the minimum viable application that I can take to the community planning committee and see what they think, if this is even a good idea. There'll probably be some other changes, like adding questions above the choices. So like, how was your visit? Good, bad. And then how do you gender identify? How do you self-identify? Something like that. Hopefully not so. Well, that's, I think about how we'll have to word that. So yeah, been another session, Code with Brylie. Thanks for stopping by. I hope you're doing well. Have a great day.